Look who's back in town. This Shabbos is the Men's Club Shabbat in the conservative movement. And there were two fellows who were supposed to have speaking parts this Saturday, and for reasons that are personal to them, they've decided that they are not quite ready yet to re-enter the building. There are 550 seats. Everything is very social distance appropriate. There is mask wearing, and it's taken very seriously. I will be there on this Shabbat because I've been asked to step up to the plate, and I will be delivering a prelude to the Torah reading. This is what we usually do. The rabbi does a prelude to the Torah reading. Afterwards there's a short Devar Haftorah, and then after the Torah is put away, there's a sermon. So I've got the trifecta, and this is the way it's going to go down. And here we go. A gitten Shabbos Solomon sitzen du in Schulahain und a Reusen Leben Teichland. It's that time of the year, indeed. Super Bowl 55. And Nun Hey suits me a lot better than the Latin LV. It will be played tomorrow, Sunday, but only after the warm-up par excellence, the worldwide rap, has been put in the proverbial books. Noted Jewish rappers from the entertainment world, such as Matisyahu and Nissim Black, will likely be donning their tefillin tomorrow morning, as well as their fellows in hundreds of congregations around the globe. If done in community, indirectly, these entertainers, along with the rest of the Olam, ought to give Hakeret HaTov, or props, to Yitro, also known as Jethro, Moses' father-in-law of Moses. Reunited, and it felt so good. The heartwarming rendition of the male bonding between Moses and Jethro, his father-in-law, is revealed a few verses into this week's Sedra. But for him not yet a practicing monotheist, at least in the Jewish sense, Jethro would have been the perfect candidate for the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs Kirov Initiative. With some productive projecting, he'd assume a rightful place with other Anshe Chayil, men of valor fitting with a religion of deed over creed. While Men's Club does not sit in judgment, Jethro's leadership is a transferable attribute. Men's clubs within the conservative movement have helped lighten the loads of clergy with shaping from its Leadership Development Institute. Contemporary Anshe Chayil participate in several of its ongoing programs, such as Build-A-Pair, which models tefillin to pre-B'nai Mitzvah youth, Learner Services, Shomrei Haaretz, as part of social justice commitments, Hearing Men's Voices, as well as several other programs. Once the inefficiencies in the new Israelite judicial system have been remedied, Moses bade fare thee well his father-in-law. Jethro would not be at the foot of Har Sinai physically as witness to the Sinaitic covenant, the Brit, with no hearing of voices there, be they of mankind, men, or eternal. There, the house of Jacob, the children of Israel, and by inference, a mixed multitude known as Erev Rav, would give a teaser to a time-tested phrase which fits into Men's Club's mission, Na'aseh v'nishma. You'll have to tune in next week to read that in context, but it certainly links to today's chapter 19, verse 8. Vaya'anu kol ha'am yachdav Vayomru kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh, v'yashev Moshe et divrei ha'am el Hashem. All the people answered as one, saying, all that Hashem has spoken we will do. And Moses brought back the people's words to Hashem. After Moses has come down from the mountain, you'll be asked to rise when the 10 Commandments will be chanted by the Chazan at the break on page 441 in the red Eitz Chaim Chumash. You'll have some time to get wrapped into it as you follow along with today's reading, which begins on page 432. Okay, so then obviously there's the Torah reading and the procession and the Aliyahs, and then there's a Haftorah which will follow my 2-minute drash. Me again. What other prophet would we read on Men's Club Shabbat if not Yeshayahu, also known as Isaiah? That name resonates with sports fans, some of us having reached a certain age. It would be great to have an Isaiah or two on intramural or regional league men's club basketball teams, but prophecy is where it's at. Though Vayikra Rabbah's got a midrash saying more about it, right here in chapter 6, verse 8, Isaiah heard God ask whom he should send, and Isaiah said, Hineni, here I am. The mission was to prophesy to God's fractious children, perhaps more challenging than presiding over some spirited board or committee meetings. Our Jewish aerobics in the Amidah should be familiar in this chanting. The Haftarah's imagery of the winged seraphs and a holy nation dovetails with the Sinaitic covenant's image of the house of Jacob and children of Israel, and by inference, the Erev Rav having been liberated on the wings of eagles, with a contractual obligation to be a holy nation. Capturing those unifying, fleeting moments of being literally and figuratively on the same page is like catching a rainbow. It's an illusion we'll revisit soon enough. Follow along as the Baal Haftorah chants the blessings, followed by the recitation on page 452. Okay. So after that and a few prayers and Torahs put away, I will say this. Pa'am Shlishit Glida. And for those of you who don't know what it means, you'll have to tune into the Zoom Havdalah tonight, and I'll explain it. Once Yitro has been sent on his way, we know what's coming. Firstly, though, there's an episode reminiscent of shuttle diplomacy, serving as a bridge to revelation. The Sinaitic covenant is contractual, so it had to be clear that in Kol B'nai Yisrael, all of the children of Israel, taking on the Torah voluntarily, there was no overt coercion. Perhaps it was necessary to recount at this point in the reading that they had journeyed from Refidim to Sinai. Last week's Parsha concludes with the events at Refidim, where the parched, cantankerous, quarrelsome Lot drank the waters Moses extracted from the rock. Our sages teach that Refidim is a contraction for Refu Yedehem min HaTorah, meaning all of the children of Israel's grip of Torah was loosened. It can be so inferred by this placement that B'nai Yisrael have put that location and attitude in the rearview mirror. In a time before Wi-Fi and Zoom meetings, Moses, the octogenarian, has put down his rod and become somewhat of a holy mountaineer. Each time in a series of treks, Moses ascends early in the morning. How far did Moses ascend to receive the proposal? From the mountain, the Lord called to Moses to relay the words as a prelude to the Sinaitic covenant. Moses' summoning of the elders evidences his having come down from the mountain. Moses brings back the people's ascent and shortly descends with boundary and purification warnings. In the midst of the Sinai volcano, the Lord comes down to its mountaintop, calling Moses to meet him there to relay the warning that the people should not break the boundaries. Though we'd been told that the people took their places following Moses' lead. God finally tells Moses, Lech red, go down. In my view, perhaps lest the people think that there's a duopoly giving Moses divinity, chas v'sholom. After the revelation, the reading of the Ten Commandments, and Moses' reassurance, there's a curious exchange where God tells Moses to tell the children of Israel that they themselves saw what God spoke to them from the heavens. Once we internalize that the word for sight can also encompass sound, we enter the realm of prophecy. Professor Kugel quotes Nehemiah in a divine conundrum. You went down upon Mount Sinai and spoke with them from the heavens. What did Bnei Yisrael see and hear? Torah recounts how they saw the sounds of thunder, lightning, and shofarot blaring. But what about the words? Did Bnei Yisrael receive a common prophecy? Some prophets and associated commentators have offered to reconcile this. Was it an actual bowing of the heavens down to the mountain, as Ezra writes? Was Mount Sinai uprooted from its place, with the heavens having opened up, encompassing the mountaintop and covering the mountain with darkness, as Eliezer writes? And a memo to the next men's club president. Don't try this at shul. Stick to sukkah building. Was the whole oral and written law announced simultaneously, perhaps in multiple languages? How can the laity process this? We've read what happened from the author's view, but what did the people perceive? It's now soon enough. It's time to bring down my Davar Haftorah comments about catching a rainbow, which is an illusion. The rock band Rainbow's first album always comes to my mind this time of the year, especially their first single, Man on the Silver Mountain, a classic which continues to resonate. Any prophecy and commentary has to be understood as a product of its time, even when commenting on the timeless. Rainbow fans will see the link when they hear this song. Perhaps the psychedelic ecstasy of the man coming down with fire, lifting spirits higher, necessitated the physical boundaries and multiple ascensions to keep Bnei Yisrael from immolating, if not spiritually overdosing. Unfortunately, stomach cancer claimed Ronnie James Dio, one of rock's nice guys, who is no longer with us. I can't find any substantive commentary on his motivations in penning the lyrics. By no means am I suggesting that contemporary entertainers be our prophets. Though it's somewhat problematic, the medieval commentator Abarbanel essentially said that for people, there was no litmus test for prophecy before it was closed. The Rashba argued that in the moment of revelation, God temporarily filled Bnei Yisrael with the necessary wisdom to experience prophecy. I'll have to get into Maimonides' Guide for the Perplexed to better understand this, realizing it could venture off endlessly. What happened at Har Sinai? The greatest minds of the Jewish people and other doctors of divinity have grappled with this over the ages. We can't climb that mountain, but we can continue engaging in healthy intellectual speculation, B'Shem Shemayim, thinking more about this on Shavuos, only 14 weeks away. Shabbat Shalom. Okay, so that is 16 minutes, and if I put in more time, I'm going to have to join some type of clergy's union. Comments, compliments, rotten tomatoes. Yeah, you can hold the rotten tomatoes. Everybody have a terrific Shabbos.